Hello, dear starshines. Welcome to today's lunchtime chats. My name is Christina, and I am an acceleration expert. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in, settle in. We have some interesting things, very interesting things to be talking about today. For those of you who are new, my name is Christina, and I'm an acceleration expert. And we are here to talk about topics and issues that are significant for us star seeds, way showers, and new paradigm visionaries. We have capacities and capabilities that are not embraced by our larger human family. Therefore, we have a very unique perspective to the current day events going on. And I do, to the best of my ability anyway, maybe I succeed, maybe I don't, but I do to the best of my ability to offer a liberated perspective to these challenges that we're facing. So welcome, 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 everybody. Please let me know if I'm coming in, if the signal is coming in okay. I'm in the middle of nowhere, desert, and I'm using my neighbor's Starlink to talk to you guys today. So let me know if it's coming through okay. And thank you so much, Tasha, for that. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that it's coming through. Now let me talk about our topics. So I want to reference, there's a few things that are on my mind. One, I want to talk about the signs that I'm seeing that, there's a cleanup going on in our artificial timelines. There is a rectification going on to our hijacked timelines. So where they're no longer hijacked and we're going as a collective into a more consolidated, organic, if that's the word to use, timeline trajectory. So I want to talk about the signs that I'm seeing that this is true. Hello, behind my eyes. Wow, behind my eyes and storylines. I love that. Hello, dear Starshine. Oh, you must be in our crew because we use the term behind our eyes all the time. That's awesome. And storylines. All right. Anyway, and then I also want to talk about justice, the inverted version of justice, and how it's serving to be in the way of the unification, healing between the masculine and feminine dynamics. So I want to talk about the inverted, distorted ideas of justice that we have that's in the way of us reunifying with our within ourselves, but also with those of the opposite sex. So whether you're a man seeking relationship with a woman or a woman seeking relationship with the masculine energy, I want to talk about this justice piece because it's profound. It's a rabbit hole. And then I also want to talk about our birthright as multidimensional beings, as sacred children of earth and sky, sacred children of earth and sky within these bodies, and how our birthright is quite literally over history has been hijacked and put on display and hiding in plain sight. So I want to talk about that because that's actually had most of my attention today in this morning. So if there are more questions that rise up as I talk about these pieces, put them in the chat and I will, you guys know that I'll get to them, sporadically as I go through these pieces. Lisa Marie, of course. My 5-year-old secret vlog is up and going. Yay! Good, glad to hear it. God, yeah, channeling those creative energies. Very good. Very good. 5-year-old secret blog. Have you really been writing a blog in secret for 5 years? That's amazing, darling. I didn't know. So let's talk about those timelines and the rectification of timelines. Like, what the heck am I talking about, right? So a lot of people, when they start getting exposed to the idea of timelines, there's like a helplessness, a powerlessness that kind of rises up because, we're given our history. We're told you know, we're pretty much told from the outer world what our choices are, what our perspective should be. This is what a good person looks like. This is what a crappy person looks like. This is what a virtuous person is, and this is what a not virtuous person is. You know what I mean? We're given all of these understandings and perspectives and judgments from our outer world. And you know, we're lied to most of the time. And this is that classic story that you hear, you know, a millionaire real estate guy ticks off all the boxes of all the things that should make him happy. He gets it all, and then he's floating in his pool one day and he realizes how miserable he is. You know what I mean? And he's wondering why. So then he starts to pursue, what is the real meaning of life? What is a life that actually is worth waking up for, right? So this is a classic story. There's so many people. I think even Tony Robbins has this story, right? So you know, this is something that humanity is struggling with at a whole, and that's because we're lied to on all these layers. And the most important, I think, or the most tragic, impactful lie that humanity is working out right now is being lied to about our history. We're being lied to about who we really are as a species, right? So if you're religious, if you follow any of the core 3 religions, which is, I'm going to say core, I'm not saying they're the only ones out there, I'm just saying the most prolific are is Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Okay, they all are based off of sacred books, and they are all based off of one common sacred book that they call different names. The Christians call it the Old Testament. The Judeo traditions, Hebrew, whatever, call them the Torah. And then we have Islam, which it's the first chapters of the Quran, right? So regardless, those stories, those creation stories, are the same in those 3 religions. And it basically is, you know, Eve was created, you know, the female was created by some piece of the man, right? And in Christianity, it's a rib, right? So some part of the man was dismembered from him, and then the woman appeared. So quite literally, the woman is an offspring of the man, right? And then they also have in common in their stories that the woman introduced a forbidden idea. In Christianity, it's eating the apple, taking from the tree of knowledge, and that got them kicked out of the Garden of Eden. So all 3 books in their creation story tell humans that they're sinners at the get-go. You're because you're in a human body, you're a sinner, and because you're in a human body, you are cursed to only reap thistles and thorns from the earth. So it instantly frames us up in a hostile relationship with the goddess, with the sacred mother. Okay, so you might think, yeah, well, that's a story way back when. I don't believe in that story, you know, blah blah blah. And what I'm here to tell you is that it doesn't matter if you believe it or not. The fact is that there's many generations of people who believe that. Many of generations of cultures have evolved with that principle informing them on a conscious and subconscious level. Okay, and it also truncates our timeline that humanity began like maybe 10,000 years ago. 6,000 years ago, if you go by the Torah. So, and the reason why that's so important is because it's an artificial timeline that they're tuning us into. And when we are, you know, tuning into an artificial timeline, we're not able to recognize artificial timeline trajectories that we're heading towards, right? We're not able to recognize what timelines are the truth in our spirit, the reason why we're waking up out of bed every day and walking through the world, versus a timeline that is hijacked and, you know, and is for an agenda outside of that of our spirit, right? We literally have nothing to compare it to, so we can't tell the difference. So this has been a major factor in the hijacking of human consciousness on this planet for many, 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 many years, right? But then we have stories that just will not go away, right? Like the story of Atlantis. That story will not go away no matter how much what do you call it? The intellectual, historical, the historians say that it's just a myth, it's just a legend. Okay, because many people, and when stories like that exist, despite being dismissed, it's because it's something in our cellular memory that we can't, that's not going to get let go of. It's something that is ingrained in our subconscious. So those stories prevail. And then we go even deeper into our spiritual journey or what have you. And then we start getting into, oh, wait a minute, there wasn't just Atlantis as a ancient civilization. There was also Mu and Lemuria. That was an ancient civilization, right? So as the story goes, the Atlanteans abused technology and eventually went against nature or created some sort of weapon or power supply that destroyed their civilization, and was, some people suspect that was the cause of the Great Flood that Mesopotamia text and in the Bible and other in the Torah and Quran refer to in their stories, a great flood. And of course, in Christianity, it was a great flood to purge the earth of the corrupted humans and stuff like this. Now, so like I said, our history getting hijacked really derails us in being able to discern our timeline trajectories from the here and now. But years ago, this was like so thick. Only like conspiracy theorists or only really out there New Agers or whatever were aware of that. The timeline was not what we're told. The timeline of human history, the timeline of advanced civilizations are not what we're told. And it's obvious, right? It's obvious because you look at Ankar in Asia. You look at these temples that were carved in a solid piece out of an entire mountain, these massive temple complexes that were carved out of an entire mountain, and they're gargantuan in size. Now, that was not some primitive people with a hammer and chisel. And they actually did the math that if you had a crew of 1 million people working 7 days a week for 100 years, you still will not be able to create that temple complex. You see what I mean? So it was really obvious that, that did not fit into the timeline. And of course, we have the pyramids of Giza, right? That's pretty clear. The Sphinx, that was a big tell. That was a big tell of the timeline distortions. A geologist was able to go in there and say, this erosion pattern shows water erosion, and it was over 45,000 years ago. Now that really puts a timeline, it totally blows the timeline out of the water. But here's another thing, and I want to put a plug in for this because I think it's extremely empowering for a human to hear the real tale, they're pointing their finger at the pink elephant in the room with those false timelines. And if you guys have Netflix, it's a show called Ancient Apocalypse. And I'm mentioning this because any show that's talking about apocalypse, I'm just like, yeah, thank you, no thank you. I feel like that's kind of like humanity revisiting their catastrophe wounds. We're the program is constantly triggering our catastrophe wounds, putting us into deep subconscious fight or flight places, like the Mad Max movies. I mean, how many post-apocalyptic dystopias have you seen in your lifetime, right? It's like I feel like those kinds of movies are triggering that deep cellular memory of trauma, of global catastrophe. And that just reinforces the lies of our past timelines. So this particular show that's all about the work of Graham Hancock, and it is so well done, and he puts it in such a simple way that is blatantly obvious that we are completely clueless of what the actual timeline is of evolved societies on this planet, of technological societies on this planet. And how the ruling intellectuals and scholar communities, how they discredit people who raise very valid question based on evidence found. And I know about, there's a female archaeologist decades ago found tobacco in an Egyptian tomb, which was shocking because at the time it was thought that only South America had cultivated tobacco. Only that was specifically to the actually the North, Central, and South American continents tobacco. And she had this evidence, and then she wrote a hypothesis based on the evidence, and she ended up getting humiliated and blackballed, and and shut down by the male scholar communities, right? So her being a female, that made it very easy back then to discredit her. I know. Doesn't that make you mad? That makes me mad. It's like, really? She's easily discredited because she's a woman? Come on now. Anyway, so I mean, the evidence has been coming out. People have been asking good questions, but they get humiliated and shamed and blackballed and all this stuff. And Graham Hancock has been the receiver of that for many decades. But the show that he's doing, it like lays it out with blatant obviousness of how the game gets played and why humanity is misinformed on the level that they are. And he talks about sacred sites that I had no idea even existed. I mean, he goes into places that there's some in Indonesia, and he goes to these places that are finding these ancient he contacts the archaeologist that does the studies, and then he finds out their story on how they were humiliated and blackballed and kicked out of their universities when they started asking questions and doing research, and then started validating their hypothesis with facts. Then they get fired and all this stuff. But he also rolls out the facts, and that's the really cool thing. You can actually see the scientific evidence that they accumulated over all these years. So I know it's frustrating to see this game happen, but what's really cool about this is that it is liberating humans from the false timeline. It's liberating us from that diminished idea of who we are and our capacities and where we come from. Is what's amazing about it. Dear Beverly Star Sign says, surprise Netflix allowed that series through. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I feel like there is actually, that brings up a really good point. Because people say, well, then why don't they keep it secret? Why do people why do they allow whistleblowers? Why do they allow this and why do they allow that? And that's because the collective conscious, okay, our collective consciousness is a field. And if you let energy build up in that field, it will eventually explode like a volcano. Nobody can control the explosion. Okay, so think about this. The collective conscious of humanity is a field, and that field builds up energy. Okay. And when enough energy collects in the field, it needs expressed. So you can suppress a narrative all you want, but when enough energy builds up within the collective field, it has to get expressed. It's like you can't snuff out that energy. So what they do, rather than allowing it to build to the level where there's an uncontrollable explosion like a volcano of that energy, instead, what they do controlled releases of that energy, controlled releases. And I think, Beverly, this is speaking to your point. That's why Netflix is allowing it, is because there's so much opening up, waking up within the collective field of humanity. They have no choice but to do those controlled releases. So all of the collective doesn't explode as an uncontrollable volcano. Okay. And this is why they allow whistleblowers on certain levels. This is why certain beings are, one of the many reasons why there's those folks in the disclosure movement. It's because this collective field, that energy has to get expressed. And this idea that I'm talking about, it's not a new idea. This is an old idea. This is the role of the jester in the court. This is the role of the thespians in Greece, in Rome. okay, is that they're the only ones that get away questioning the king. They're the only ones getting away speaking about taboo topics. And it's because those dramas that those amphitheaters were built for, those dramas weren't just dramas for entertainment. Those dramas were happening to express energy, to express archetypes. Okay. And when the energy reached a certain critical mass that where it wasn't okay for anybody else to say it, it was the jester and or the thespian that was allowed to play the role and call out the pink elephant in the room. Okay. And that was a pressure release to the collective. They did it in a way where they would say it would be like, oh, but then it was also done in a way where people would laugh and laugh and laugh. And what does laughter do? It dispels energy. So quite literally, by making these shadow topics funny, humans would collaborate, collude with the dispersion of that energy by laughing, 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 laughing. And this is why dark comedy is, so potent. Okay. So thank you, dear Beverly, for bringing that up. So anyway, it's an excellent show. And to me, this is a sign the humans are waking up to so much more, and we're that much more aligned with the timelines that are in harmony, in alignment with our true spirit, in harmony and alignment with who we actually are inside as sovereign, multidimensional beings. So to me, this is a magnificent sign. Magnificent sign. Now, what to look for are how many pressure releases start getting put out there. How many pressure releases? Because there was a pressure release done earlier than that, and that was by the History Channel. And what was that one? Ancient Aliens, right? And then there was another pressure release with the disclosure movement. They're talking about they were releasing testimony of pilots and military officers and stuff about the UFOs they've encountered, right? So they do these pressure releases because it has to get acknowledged. They want to, the energy can't get too strong or else they can't control it anymore. So they do those pressure releases so they can control it, so it's still manageable. Now what happens is when and this is I think it's a great thing. And this is also why sacred dramas are so powerful at unwinding things, because we have our own personal 4D field. We have our own personal mental, emotional, energy, subconscious dramas going on. And when we're not able to acknowledge something or touch something with our awareness, we can create our own kind of sacred drama and explore the energy. We can explore the frequencies by role playing in different ways and release enough of the pressure of that energy for us to find something new, find out something different that we didn't already know. So it's a way to explore the unknown, sacred dramas. Now, I used to do workshops a lot with these sacred dramas, particularly the sacred dramas of the energy of the planets. And it was really, really powerful, especially when we took the energy of the planets like Saturn, Mars, Pluto. Wow, wow, wow. The energy was just off the hook. And it released a lot. It released a lot of deep subconscious burdens that people had. It cleared things out of the Akasha. Okay. Now it takes people who can focus and hold space. So it's not just anybody can do this. They need to have the focus, the dedication, and the ability to hold space in order to relieve, pressure release energy like that. So it's not just for anybody to do. I've actually tried it a couple times where people were not able to hold space, and it was a disaster. So I learned my lesson very quickly. Okay, I need a really aware person. I need people who are super tuned in and have that capacity, and even know what holding space is, So like I said, hallelujah, this is a great sign for humanity that this is happening, because people are done. So many people are done. Okay. So this takes me to that next level. So I want to go to the inversion of the idea of justice. Okay. Now, I've talked about this before, and I think it was last year, but this is another level of refinement. Okay. So, who here would like to share their idea of what justice is? Okay. Who would like, if anybody is willing to share what their idea of justice is? And actually, I'm going to go ahead also and just take a dictionary definition. Okay. All right. So the definitions that you know, when you actually, this is in Google, what is this? DuckDuckGo. When you DuckDuckGo, define justice, this is what comes up. The quality of being just, fairness, okay? The principle of moral rightness, decency, okay? Conformity to moral righteousness in action or attitude, righteousness. Okay, now is that the definition of justice you remember? Okay, righteousness. So, yeah, please put something down if you have something. Because what I have been tracking into, and I've unwound this for a few people now, and this is why I want to talk about it, is that the sense of justice, the sense of being right, okay, this is an inverted program that keeps people locked. It keeps people locked in a duality game, a duality polarity game. And what I have found out over my, you know, tracking with people, unwinding things, what I realized, especially recently, this has really popped up, is that the idea, the program of justice, the need for justice is actually a wedge between the masculine and feminine harmonizing with each other, unifying. Okay. And what this is doing, it's holding in place the wounding between them both, the feminine and the hijacking, and, you know, the hijacking of the womb space, the cutting off, the gagging, you know, all this stuff is held in place because the feminine archetype wants justice and revenge to get even, you know, because she's righteous, right? And the masculine is not willing to give that justice. Is the masculine is righteous in their attitude as an archetype, and because they both are righteous, they're not willing to put down their weaponry, their aims at each other, for a unification to happen. Okay, a forgiveness to come forward. I'm speaking archetypally, so don't you know, say, well, I'm fine with my husband, whatever. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these subconscious programs that keep men and women pitted up against each other. Okay, not actually supporting each other, not creating together harmony and beauty between them. Okay. All right. So Luna Rio says, I like to look at the etymology of the words. And in this case, it's the administration of the law, which doesn't necessarily reflect what is actually fair. Now, that is interesting. And then you go to, where did these laws come from, right? Who made these laws? People talk about universal law. Okay, what universal being made that law? Who wrote that in stone? You know, you see what I mean? So even that word law implies an authority outside of oneself, right? So that takes us deeper down that rabbit hole. And dear sister Edna says, justice is supposed to be about fairness, equality. Scales are supposed to balance. Okay, that's a great point. So check this out. Who forgives first? When you have two opposing sides, they're both completely righteous in how they are and what they're feeling and their decisions and their actions. Who is it upon to extend the proverbial olive branch? Who's gonna do that? Who's the one that's going to extend the olive branch to the other if they both are righteous? Okay. Yeah, it's like, oh, well, they both think they're right, so they have no reason to extend the olive branch. Well, here's the thing. Women are the ones who reprocreate. They're the ones who give life. They're the ones with the womb space that allow life into this realm. Every single animal on this planet came from a womb space or an egg, right? Animal, reptile, whatever, came from insect, fish, right? All came from a feminine principle. So, right? So you see there's a power dynamic here. And the man, the masculine, needs to acquiesce to the feminine, but doesn't for the righteousness. So there's like a half, I'm only doing this because I have to. And then there's a resentment built. So that's how this thing gets inverted. Okay. So Felicia says, the one who knows winning is love. That's a good one. That's a good one. So when both feel righteous and not loving, right? So usually what happens is that one gets put in a vulnerable position and petitions the other. That's usually what happens. One gets vulnerable, put in a vulnerable position, and petitions the other. And then it's up to the other to decide. And, as we play this out, especially with all the shenanigans going on these days, this piece that I'm talking about just gets exacerbated more and more and more and more. You have the pro-vaxxers hating the anti-vaxxers, the anti-vaxxers hating the pro-vaxxers. You have people who are stuck in the middle. You have people playing both sides of the fence. You have all these dynamics that make people afraid to speak, make people afraid to show their love, make people afraid to, or it makes people's love and acceptance irrelevant, right? So there's, these games are getting more and more sophisticated as we go into this unification process. But that's why the shenanigans is going on, is because they need our collusion in this game. And the more we wake up to who we are as multidimensional beings, the less we're willing to collude in the game. You see what I mean? The less we're willing to let certain dynamics influence how we treat people. Okay. And this is why in the past I was saying, always choose your humanity. It doesn't matter who's right and who's wrong. Always choose your humanity. And that's the big question to be asked if someone is, trying to push their thoughts or their opinion or their righteousness. Actually, that's a better way to say it. When someone's trying to push their righteousness, it's like, well, I'm sorry that your righteousness, your humanity is not as strong as your need to be right. You see? And just saying it like that is like, whoa, like, ouch. Okay. All right. So Luna Rio says, like the Solomon baby story in the Bible. Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. It's like what he put that third piece in there. Felicia says, I face the sides of being right all the time. This will keep us from knowing the truth of our human destiny. Yeah, as long as we keep buying into it. Absolutely. So instead of justice, instead of being right, it's more of, getting in touch with our humanity. What part of us wants love? What part of us is really just wanting love and acceptance? And when we can sink into that and that vulnerability, we can start transmuting the perverted justice program. Okay. The thing is, when feelings and energies are really high and they're super intense, it takes time and space to discover that. And this is coming into another piece, and this is how our birthright as sovereign multidimensional beings has been repeatedly hijacked and put on display throughout history in front of our faces. Okay. I know this is going to be a trip. All right. So you guys know I talk about Marguerite a lot in the work that she does with parthenogenesis and the sacred sisterhood and stuff like this. Well, so one of the dear star shines in our academy didn't ask this question directly to me, but asked one of our facilitators about a vision they keep having, which was a severed hand keeps coming into their awareness, and they're like, I don't know what this is. Do you know what this is? Like, it keeps coming. So so I get asked this question, and intuitively I just instantly had this sense of, it's a punishment. It's a punishment of some sort, of a divine being. And through digging deeper into all this, a massive rabbit hole appeared, and of course I went down it, and I was astonished on how it's hidden in plain sight. And this is how it goes. When you are a self-realized being, when you're a being that is awoke to who you are as multidimensional, no matter where you are in history, what's happening is your DNA dance is fully awake. Your DNA dance is fully alive. Okay. And and there's something that happens when you dismember the physical body of a being that was a self-realized multidimensional being. And this is woven deep into our mythology. We have the Egyptian pantheon, and I think it's the sun Osiris that gets dismembered by his brother Seth. And then the goddess Isis goes to the ends of the earth to find all his pieces and reassemble him again. You guys are familiar with that story. And then you have all sorts of reiterations of similar kinds of stories like that. But then you have these stories of the divine sisters. And these are the ones that are self-realized women that are capable of parthenogenesis, which is immaculate conception. Okay. And you think that maybe it's just a story here and a story there and like this, but it's not. And this is what I was astounded by. So in our conversation, she's asked, Dear Starshine's asking about the severed hand. I'm giving my intuitive hit information that's coming to me about it. Then another Starshine found whose hand, found a story. Her son told her a story about someone's hand in a cathedral, and then she just kind of Googled it or whatever. Whose hand was it? And it was a king of Turkey, which is the part of the Ottoman Empire. So here's where things get really interesting, and this is where ding light started going off in my head. So I give that information. She says this, King Thomas of Turkey, right? And then I started realizing, the royalty in their original intention were servants of humanity, and they were meant to have dominion over the realms. That's always been a statement, Lord of the realms. Okay, so it's not just the human realm, but it's also the telluric realm as well, the elemental realms. Okay, which means the coronation of the different royal lines were not just humans deciding it, but elemental beings also collaborating, saying, yes, this person has the awakened DNA, has the capacity to be a royal being, a divine being. And so this King Thomas, this was back in history, right? Was also a saint. But check this out. The Ottoman Empire, this is just so cool. So the Ottoman Empire, its cultural center was Visoko. It's now located in Visoko, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Okay. Now, Bosnia and Herzegovina, you guys know that there was a conflict. The U.S. came in, we cleaned, we did whatever. There's all kinds of crazy stories about what happened there. But as an act of peace, they decided to separate the country into two zones. There's a Catholic zone and an Islamic zone. The Bosnia side is Islamic, and the Herzegovina side is the Christian, is the Catholic, specifically Catholic. And that famous village, Marjagoria, where the apparition of Mary appeared, is in the Herzegovina side. Okay, so but that little tiny village, Visoko in Bosnia, also happens to be where the Bosnian pyramids exist. Now, there's all kinds of debunking that has happened about the Bosnian pyramids by the scholars, right, in academia. But I can tell you, because I've been there, that place is the real deal. The energy alone is off the hook. You go into the Ravna tunnels, amazing. I mean, just the whole complex is absolutely extraordinary. So we end up going to the ruins of a master-built church, which means it was a church, a temple that was built with the energy of the elemental realm in mind, of the cosmos in mind, and it was a place of perfect harmony and sanctuary between the cosmic and earthly realms. And then once we're reading more, or actually our dear brother Starshine, who was acting as our guide that day, he was reading to us the history of this place. And that happened to be the sacred well where all of the Ottoman royal beings, kings and queens, were coronated. Until they were coronated there for hundreds of years. Okay, this includes Turkey. Turkey is part of the Ottoman Empire, right? For hundreds of years, they were coronated in that temple. And it wasn't until the breakup of the Ottoman Empire did the capital get moved to Sarajevo. And then that temple was left to fall to ruins. So when I get wind of this thing about the king of Turkey, and his hand being there, I'm instantly connected with an actual royal being, an actual sainted being, an actual self-realized being who had a full living DNA dance. Okay. So then also comes the dismembering story. So I started doing some research about cutting hands off, and I found some fascinating stories. The most gruesome of the stories that I found was with King Leopold in Belgium. And there's a town called Antwerp, which literally means throwing of the hand. Okay. So they were plagued by a giant that charged a toll every time you wanted to cross a river, this river that he was at. And if you refused to pay him money, he would chop your hand off and throw it into the river. So he was feeding, right? He was feeding a nature spirit like this. So there was a hero, that Brago, that was offended by this and went and hunted down the giant and cut off his hand. And so to commemorate that event, they have this giant fountain in the center of Antwerp of Brago holding the hand of the giant like this, with water pouring out of it like it's blood, getting ready to chuck it like a football. So King Leopold, fast forward 1,000 years, King Leopold comes into the picture, and he takes over the Dominion of Congo. And he wants all the ivory and rubber of Congo, and he demands that all the men of that country deliver the rubber and the ivory to the ports of Belgium, and those that rebel would get their hands cut off. And the story is that millions of people got their hands cut off. And later on, of course, that was, it was discovered that he was enslaving those people, would not actually in trade with those people. But while his reign was placed, he took all the money from that enslavement and built these magnificent buildings in Belgium. So that's like one of the most gruesome ones, but there's more. So the hands get cut off as a punishment, but the full-on dismemberment continues. So a hand, right? It's said to carry powers. Okay. It's said to carry powers, and there is something called, here, hold on a second, the hand of glory. So if you can acquire the hand of someone who was a thief through magical workings, you can conjure the powers, the abilities, the skills of that thief, right? And to a magical rite, and then you will have those skills and capacities at your access for you to successfully rob places and things. It's called the hand of glory. Here, can I share this? How do I share this? All right, just so you guys can check this out. I'm not making this stuff up. Here, I'm going to do it like this. Oh, here we go. I'll do it like this. And then I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see it, because this is crazy stuff. All right, share screen. Dun, 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 dun. Share screen. It's telling me I need to have 2 monitors, but I'm not going to do that. Brave tab. Here we go. And it is the Hand of Glory one. Can you guys see that? So this is the Hand of Glory. So this is a magical use of a hand. Okay. And what I found out through my research, hold on a second, let me get back. What I found out through my research is that the saints, this is in Catholic works, the saints, male saints, and across the board, they defied the doctrine of the Catholic Church, such as St. Francis Assisi. He taught that God was in every blade of grass and every bird and every tree. That was directly against the tenets of the Catholic faith, but yet he was a Catholic saint. So what happens is that these self-realized beings are so potent and so powerful, they have to be acknowledged. Just like I was talking about with that collective field, right? That collective field needs to, in the beginning, you know, you need to pressure release it. That's how they're doing. They couldn't excommunicate those saints because they would completely, you know, pull their people, pull the all, you know, pulls of the masses away from the obvious fakeness of what the Catholic Church was about, right? So they would incorporate them into you know, they would keep them as part of the Catholic hierarchy, right? So St. Francis Assisi is a great example. Well, it turns out there were many, many other saints that were like this, and many of them were royalty, were kings, princes, queens, okay? Now, the kings that were also saints, they would have their hands severed, okay? They would actually have their hand severed, and then that hand is put in display at different cathedrals around Europe, United States, and other places. And of course, what you know about the cathedrals, those are powerful energy points. Those are powerful energy points that the cathedral gets built on, and then they take the hand of this royal king and or saint like this and put it on display. So it's quite literally saying this is what will happen to you, right? You'll get punished if you become self-realized. Okay, this is a silent agreement that people go into without even knowing it. Okay, now the fate is even worse for the self-realized women. And this is a trip. Oh, let me show you guys this. This is such a trip. I was astonished here. Let me make sure I have the right tab to show you, because it was amazing. All right, so there's something called cephalophores. Cephalophores are saints that have had their heads severed. Okay, cephalophores, I mean, there's so many of them and they have their own term, right? So check this out. This is you guys are going to maybe crack up, or maybe you'll be super pissed. Hold on a second. I want to, all right, stop screen. All right, stop the screen share. Okay, let me go into the next thing, screen share, and show you guys the list of cephalophores. Okay, so through my research, what I found was that there is lots of cephalophores throughout history. Okay, you guys can see this. All right, see this list? That's a lot of cephalophores, right? These are only the Catholics. These are only acknowledged Catholic saints on this list. There's many more. There's many more other than this, but check this out. Many of these saints were self-realized women of the sacred sisterhood. They were Marys. They were, you know, okay, they were the Magdalens. They were the different Mary lines, okay? And, you know, Brigitte is also included in this, Saint Brigitte, who also, after her death, was dismembered. Okay. So we, in front of our faces, in our cathedrals and other places in our story, we have these stories of sacred women getting dismembered. And it's such a trip. This Winifred, This Winifred at the towards the end of the list, she was a sacred sister. She had a vow of celibacy at the age of 12. She wanted to be a nun. That's, you know, code for a sacred sister, right? Her parents promised her to a royalty to marry some guy. She fled. He tracked her down, tried to rape her. She decided, you know, she fought it off, and in return he beheaded her. Okay. Same thing with, sorry. Also, this thing with this particular saint, Winifred, she was a Celtic. As we know, the elemental realm was deeply involved in the Celts and the Gauls culture. She was a Celtic priestess. Let's say it like that. And when they beheaded her, a sacred well sprung up. A sacred well sprung up from the ground, and that well went on to be to release healing waters that many generations of humans went to draw water from for healing. Similar story is with this Saint Saturnina. Okay, interesting name, Saturn, right? Saturnina. She was also a sacred sister that was beheaded fighting off a forced upon mate. Actually all of the women on this list were all sacred, of the sacred sisterhood, and they were all beheaded for refusing to let themselves be raped, refusing to surrender their pure status, their virgin status. And this story is exemplified to us with the story of Medusa. So this is a sacred sisterhood. She was a high priestess. She was a Virgin Mary, right? And she, I think it was, shoot, I keep messing this up. If it was Zeus or Poseidon, I can't remember, one of those two gods was pursuing her and was trying to rape her. And she ran to Aphrodite, I think it was, to ask for protection. And instead, she got raped in the temple of Aphrodite. And as punishment, instead of punishing the man, Aphrodite cursed her, turned her into a Medusa. Okay. And how did Medusa die? She got beheaded. Okay. So this defilement of the sacred feminine is all over the place. It's all over the place. It's hidden in plain sight. And this is just recent history, guys. Think about the tens of thousands of years humanity has been in existence. Now that we know the timelines are total lies, that, you know, who else would be on this list? Okay. And why is this significant? The reason why this is significant is because they are reenacting an ancient ritual, and they are reenacting the ancient ritual of the dismemberment of Tiamat, the dismemberment of the sacred cosmic mother womb. That's a reenactment over and over and over and over again. And it's interesting that these stories, especially the women who get beheaded, many of them talk about a sacred spring erupts from the elemental realm, and it becomes a place of healing for people. Okay. So these stories of dismemberment are reinforcing our own dismemberment inside. All, you know, the death of 1,000 cuts, you know, all the times, all the abandonment, all the parts of ourselves we cut out because it wasn't conforming, right? All the parts of ourselves we've abandoned, all the parts of ourselves that we've rejected, made wrong. You see what I mean? So by having actual realized beings get ceremoniously dismembered over and over and over and over and over again, they are doing their best to keep our fragmentation in place. So if we have a self-realized sister, Sacred Mother, Virgin Mary, actually get buried into the ground, aka the telluric realm, the decomposition of that awakened unified DNA would reinform the elemental realm. It would reinform the elemental realm. And the elemental realm will wake up. you know, from playing their part in the severance game. So this is why, hold on a second, I'm not done, there's one more. And this is why the story of the Assumption of Mary is so important. Her body never got placed into the elemental realm. Therefore, her being in the story never got to reinform the lands in which she would have been buried. Instead, she was assumed. She never experienced the expiration of leaving this body. She was assumed into the heavens. Yet her son, who gets demasculated, who gets castrated, all this stuff. I mean, not castrated like literally, like there's a story of him getting castrated. No, he gets castrated in that you have to be celibate in order to be like Jesus, right? It was done in story. It was done in teaching. It was done in principles and values, right? So, I mean, this is big stuff that we're talking about. Maybe you guys could just feel in your body what's happening when I'm talking about this. So we can reclaim these dismemberments. Now, there's lots of ways to reclaim these dismemberments, but one way particularly that's in my mind is grid work. Okay, working with those collective fields. Okay, there's a lot of cosmic flow pouring into our reality right now via the moon. Okay, I mean, high level cosmic realms just pouring into the collective consciousness right now. And yeah, I know the moon, part of the moon is hijacked, but not the whole thing. Only certain bandwidths of frequency are hijacked. There are higher dimensional levels of the moon that are not hijackable. And that is where those cosmic transmissions are coming. And it's informing our waters, our rivers, our lakes, our streams. Okay. So this is pouring into our reality. And what it's doing, you know, it's kind of like, I want to say, giving us opportunity to lay new consciousness grids. It's reinforming the ley lines. It's reinforming the earth, the telluric realm in such a deep way. That's one of the many, many reasons why we're getting new energy centers developing, new stargates developing, new ley line patterns happening. Okay. There's like a reclaiming on a deep, deep, deep cosmic level of the sacred sisterhood. And I don't want to leave men out because they benefit from this, absolutely, but it has to start with them. It has to start with them. And it is starting with them. So it's starting within the sacred sisterhood. It's starting within the feminine natures of you, of me, of all the people we know, male or female, doesn't matter, male, female, or other, doesn't matter. We all have feminine aspects to us, and this is all getting reinformed by these cosmic frequencies. So by us embodying different grid works in relationship to an awakened virgin status within ourselves, right? We are laying a new collective grid work, and that too has to have its expression. That energy has to be expressed. No one can control it. It's here. It can't be locked down now that it's here. You see what I mean? So even though there's a lot of chaos and turmoil going on and things are very painful right now for a lot of folks, just know that miracles are happening right now for the collective, for the Pachamama, for the sisterhood, for men, for women, for children. You know, miracles are coming forward, and it's amazing, amazing, amazing. All right, so dear Felicia says, is this also the reason for child abuse and sacrifice? Yeah, because it's all about the innocence, the robbing of innocence, because the more you rob of innocence, the more that goes into the collective. And what happens is when that's happening over and over and over and over and over again, there's a deep grieving process. There's a deep grief and anguish and despair in the collective that has to get expressed. And if you don't know all this terrible abuse is going on, nobody knows that it has to get expressed, and it starts expressing through our own subconscious. We start to be the ones who are expressing this despair, experiencing the despair, the hopelessness, the loss of our innocence. Okay. You can see the game now. All right. I was a member of a dance troupe that danced the dance of the Vestal Virgins. Wow. Very good. Very good. These virgins were perfectly touched by priests who brought the divine into sexuality. Mary, Jesus's mother, was such a woman. Yes, yes, yes. So, and here's the thing: we call her name like it's Mary, but actually that's a title. That is a title of the Sacred Sisterhood of Isis, right? So this is self-realized beings capable of immaculate conception, aka parthenogenesis, and because the realms were unified within them, they brought beauty, balance, harmony to all of the lands that they dwelled, okay, upon which they dwelled. That their very presence did that. And this was the original function of royalty, was to bring, to maintain a perfect balance, a harmony, so abundance would abound for the people. So, I mean, there's so much here than we realize. And I really hope that this was helpful for you guys to recognize you have a role in this. All of you have a role in this. And this is why it's so important for us to heal those wounds, heal those pieces that keep us in an opposition status with masculine and feminine inside of us and outside of us, and also recognize that's why it's so important that we cultivate a healthy autonomous relationship with exospecies. Now that could be ETs, but that also means nature spirits, that means devas, that means gnomes and trolls and fairies and elves and Sasquatches. It's like, yeah, this stuff is chalked up as fantasy for the human experience, but for those of us who know how to traverse multiple realms, we know those beings exist. We know they are real. Many of us are friends with Sasquatch beings, you know, have been nurtured by those relationships, and this is why the realms are coming together, and we need to rectify with that. We need to go, you know, do what we need to do to bring the harmony, to reestablish that fairy accord from long ago, where our realms overlap, there is an agreement that we will meet in peace and in brotherhood and sisterhood, okay, co-creativeness. And as that gets restored by each of you building your relationships with these exospecies, we're doing our part of bringing the unification of these realms together. All right. Thank you guys for being here. Oh, thank you, Felicia, for that. She's saying this is so beautiful. Yeah, for the month of December especially. Yes. So this is a sacred month. This is, you know, this is the month of where solstice happens. Well, and also people Christmas, but this is where we get these interesting traditions that we continually practice, like the Yule log tradition, like the Christmas tree tradition. You know, this is humanity reconnecting with the telluric realm. This is humanity celebrating the telluric realm. This is humanity doing what they can to bring beauty forward. Okay, so, and this is because, you know, the days are getting shorter. We're seeing so much light. This is humanity creating their own light from their spirit. So that's coming together with others you love, that's telling stories, that's sharing in good cheer, that's, you know what I mean? This is these traditions that we have for the holidays of this time of year go so much deeper than, you know, Santa Claus and buying presents. It goes way deeper than that. It's showing us what it looks like for humanity to make their own light, and humanity to reach that olive branch out and celebrate the telluric realm and the gifts that come with that. Okay. So, yeah, I can keep going and going on that, but I'm past my time, so I won't hold you guys any further. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. I really hope that this is helpful and some perspectives came forward, and perhaps some activation of cellular memory came forward. I'm so grateful to be able to talk like this with you guys. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here and allowing this to happen. If you guys want to join in our academy, we have space in our core curriculum, which is all about empathic empowerment work. And I encourage you guys to check that out. It's at lightbodyacademy.com. Lots of love to you guys. We'll see you next time. Mwah. Ooh, somebody has a photographed leprechaun. That is awesome. If you can share it in some of our groups, that would be great. I know personally people who have communications with leprechauns, darling. So it may be very well received, that picture. I'd love to talk to you about it too. All right, darlings. That's it for me. Bye.